Welcome back to the Corporate Cowboys podcast. Little proof of life. Today's Saturday, February 4, 2023. My name is Alex. For the next 30 minutes, you'll get a free consultation, some free game, if you will, whether it serves to inspire you, whether it works to motivate you to be better, to do better, to develop yourself professionally. I know I am. Even now, just speaking to you, having you listen. Let me do all the talking, shall we? This episode is episode 14, season 7. We're 14 episodes, about halfway through season 7 already. Can you believe it? Today's question is coming from none other than r/ career guidance. It's asking us for advice. But I may go off on a little monologue given the question here. It's asking, is it okay to say no to, quote, may we contact this old employer? Question mark. So on job applications, whether they be online or in hard copy, paper format, right? There's typically a series of questions asking you for your employment history, the dates that you worked at whatever organization, the name of your supervisor, their title, including your title also, what duties and obligations you handled and took care of while you were in that position, how long you've worked, right? Already mentioned that. But the period of time in which you worked and whether or not you're currently working with them. Towards the end of that, there's a little box. Typically, it's asking whether or not your manager still works there, your previous manager still is employed with the organization, and another question asking if they can contact your employer. Now, the answer options are yes or no. More often than not, you're going to answer yes right off the bat. You're a corporate cowboy. What have you got to hide? You've only done good work. In the words of Scarface, you never fucked anybody over in your life that didn't have it coming to them. And if they did, you weren't working for them. You may not have been working for them. Let's put it that way. Chances are increasingly slim, nil to none. So, folks that you work with and you associate with will more than likely speak marvels of you. Speak marvels of the good things that you've done for the organization. Why? Because you conduct yourself a professional. You conduct yourself professionally. Is it okay to say no? Of course it is. Of course it is. I feel like the answer is obvious, but the question comes from a lack of confidence and knowing to go into these interviews with confidence. What you think if you put down no, they're just going to disregard your request, not consider it, and just call them outright and be like, hey, you remember Alex? Tell us about him. Yeah, I know that seems like fertile land, fertile soil for more dirt, if that makes sense. It looks like an opportunity to dig into your life as a professional, but there could be a valid reason why you cannot have prospective employers get back to previous employers. I mean, you could be working for that employer currently and just don't want to have them contacted. Maybe you're working a way out of an organization. and don't want to get on anybody's radar that you're taking interviews, that you're planning on leaving, that you're being recruited away, that never looks good, right? I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me read the body for you. It says the body, well, what the title says. If it makes any difference, it's for an entry level engineering position. I worked for this company for 1.5 years, all as a student. What, so they were like an intern? Continues, I graduate in about 6 months. Okay. I do not want this employer to be aware that I'm searching for new work, as they told me they may, that's in italics, they may take me again in the near future. The company is going through some legal stuff, and I do not have work right now. So they're not currently employed, right? They're not currently employed. You work for them for 1.5 years as a student. I don't know in what capacity. Were you some kind of student intern, a clerk of some kind? Where if you did a good job and they told you that they would hire you in the future, they would consider you in the future, given their situation, you don't think they would give you a good recommendation, a good referral? You don't think they would speak niceties of you? Why? Do you not believe you did right by that employer? Do you not believe you conducted yourself professionally as a student's employee, as a student's intern, maybe? I don't see what the hangup is. The last paragraph here says, with that being said, I want to apply for other jobs for after I graduate, just in case, but I would like to keep it away from this employer. Will my application be disregarded if I tell them they can't contact my old employer? Thanks, it says. No, right off the bat, no. I think the majority of employers, not the majority, I think when applying to different industries, different calibers of organizations, different calibers of firms, they may disqualify you for not being open, for not being transparent. They may not even ask about it, or they may ask about it. And that presents issues in and of itself. That could present issues in and of itself. By and large, if you don't want them to contact your employer, they won't contact them. Now, this begs the question, just how professional can one be when interviewing for work while you are not currently employed? Unless the organization was so tightly knit, so close knit, that a job for you was guaranteed, you owe them nothing. They owe only to speak of you honestly. That's it. All they owe is honesty. So if you did right by the firm, they should let any prospective employer know what kind of work you engaged in with them and how you did in terms of quality. What you think, because they're going through legal issues, that your prospective employer might catch them on a bad day when they're handling this case or something? I mean, that's what they got lawyers for. The managers are there to operate business, to make sure that the business is running, the business side of things, right? So They're not calling the legal department, hey, did Alex ever work for you? What about him? And just have the legal department that's neck deep in motions and filings and briefs to, to talk shit about you because, I don't know, frustration, right? Because of overwhelming workload. No, no, not at all. They're calling the hiring manager or human resources at that organization. Again, this depends the type of industry you're in, the size of the firm, the caliber of the firm, because they could have ongoing litigation and still give you a glowing review. That's not impossible in any way. It's not impossible. It can be done. Could be a lack of confidence on your part. Some might say there's nothing wrong with checking the no box, that you don't want them to contact this employer. But again, during the interview, they may ask you about the work, and you have to be that much more prepared to give them the information they want about your experience there. Not to deflect the fact that you don't want them to contact that previous employer, but to reflect your experience, your expertise, your knowledge. Obviously, you have to be wary that you can't share any proprietary or trade secret information, nothing confidential from the previous employer. But again, that's where your professionalism shines. You let them know without disclosing too much exactly what your experience was like. They're going to hire you on those merits of how you interview, not always on what others say about you. Because you could mark the yes box and they still won't call. You could give them permission to contact old employers and they won't give a fuck. Again, this depends on the caliber of firm. Maybe they don't think it would give them any additional information that they couldn't get from you in an interview, which is why it's all the more reason for you to be open, transparent, and thorough in your interviews. You want to answer coherently, answer comprehensively, and ask them questions in return. If there are areas, if they have any follow ups that they would like to have answers to. In an interview, you become the one with the answers. Yeah, towards the middle, once you get started, you pick up some steam. Shit, you build rapport with your interviewer, then the questions can go both ways. They can go two ways. Make it conversational even. That's how you move from an applicant, from an interviewee, to a potential colleague, to a potential associate. You're already you can move past from just checking boxes needed for qualifying you for a position into shading areas that they need coverage in. They could grow comfortable with you during the interview to share with you their problems and ask you for your strategy, your solution. Always, always conditioning your answers to the fact you do not work for them. You don't work for them yet, but you're ready to get started. I like how we went from is it okay to answer no? So you just said no. You just said no, keep it moving. That's it. Don't ask if it's okay or not. Take what I say with a grain of salt, right? I may be a professional, but I'm not your professional yet. If you find yourself in a situation you can't find answers to, after searching diligently, posting it somewhere, Yahoo, Quora, Reddit, all those, do a little due diligence on your part first. You can reach out to us. Our rates are reasonable. You want professional consultation, career moves to make, possible options to exercise as far as logic and tact and strategy goes. What it takes to move like a corporate cowboy, shit, reach out to us. We're on Instagram. That's at corporate cowboys with the Z at the end. Like cocaine cowboys, but in corporate. You have to move mean, move lean. Just say no and keep it moving. If you're scared, I didn't see any potential red flags in the body of that question that would lead me to believe that no is the right answer, that no, that you don't want them to contact your old employer is the right answer. It might be appropriate in your situation, but we don't know the entirety of your situation. Of course, in an initial intake interview, I would be the one asking you questions. We wouldn't go as in depth with your employers, previous employers. These are questions we ask you. We expect if you come to us with issues, that you're willing to be open and honest with your consultant. Otherwise, what good is our opinion? What good is our perspective? Let's take a look at a couple of these comments and see if we can't break them down a little bit or add to them even. We're essentially critiquing, I mean, we're not critiquing the question, right? Other than more facts are always helpful, always helpful. So if this was a one-to-one, some type of personalized session or number of sessions, we would build a profile, we would build a case, we would build a file on what your situation consists of in terms of the organization you're coming from, organizations you're applying to, and possible approaches to that question of whether or not they can contact one another. The first comment here says yes, meaning yes, they can mark no, that they don't want this prospective employer to reach out to older employers and ask about you. They're saying yes, you just say, quote, I am still with this company and would not like them contacted, end quote. They will understand, it says. It won't hurt your application unless they are complete idiots. And if so, you don't want to work there anyways. Yeah, I mean, I like to give folks the benefit of the doubt. I like to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, right? Treat them on face value as I think they would like to be treated. But you do encounter ineptitude and an incompetency in hiring departments through hiring managers. It's not unheard of, right? We've all worked with somebody, either beside them or below them, where they weren't all up to snuff. They were not as professional, as consummate as we would like them as corporate cowboys. But that makes enough sense. If I'm hiring someone, if I'm recruiting someone, shit, if I'm poaching someone, I don't let the company know. I approach the employee directly. I'm not going to reach out to their employer, to their manager. If I'm the one doing the recruiting, it's because I know who I am recruiting, right? Again, this goes back to interviewing. I get as much information I can from them. If it's not available publicly, if it's not available through reputation, again, that's going to be in the industry, in the organization, between businesses. Professionals talk, executives talk, reputation travels. So if I have someone in an organization reach out to us and apply, we will do our due diligence, but not to burn them. We're not going to reach out directly to their manager and be like, hey, you have Alex applying to us over here. What can you tell us? Because we don't know what situation Alex is navigating through. They may be working again on some type of exfil plan, some type of exit plan from this organization, and they need coverage for it. So they got to move covertly without alerting anybody. And most companies, most firms would give you the consideration of when answering no, you don't want them contacted. They're not going to contact them. Again, there are idiots. Idiots exist. Just incompetence exists. And they're willing to call your supervisor, call your manager. But then that burgeons on the edge of that verges on the extreme, like an extreme situation. Say your manager and the manager at your prospective employer's firm, they know each other somehow. They've got a special relationship. They could be, I don't know, they could be related, they could be friends, they could be associates. And they reach out to one another, right? To give each other the heads up. A form of collusion, if you will. A form of it. It's like. It's not the same. It's like. It's similar, not the same. A form of, a kind of. Really, it's just an association. And it could be casual. It could be professional. But that's more advanced. We would have to know more about the firm you were in and the firms you're applying to. And that's going to be through a one-on-one session. That's expert level corporate cowboy shit. The next comment here says, absolutely, it's very common to say no for the company you're still working for. Yeah, I mean, that's almost standard practice at this point, right? If you're at a firm and you're leaving, well, if you haven't explored options for advancement, for additional development, for increases in compensation, increases in title, that's just you fucking up. But understandably, some firms might be toxic. Some firms might be just all out ass, just incompetent, just ran by stupidity, and you want to leave, so you apply outside. You don't want to work for them anymore. That makes sense. Nothing wrong with that. And they say, absolutely, it's very common to say no for the company you're still working for. If you say no about all of them, that's a red flag. Also, 9 times out of 10, they won't even ask. They're gauging your response. I think that last piece, whether they're gauging your response, it's going to be during the interview. You can't really gauge a response through checking a box. They just said no, can't contact them, the end. That second to last paragraph about saying no about all of your past employers, definitely a red flag. What the fuck happened? Every time you've been employed, unless it's some kind of uber tight non disclosure agreement, right? But no, no. If you say no, you can't contact anybody I've ever worked with or ever worked for, that's a red flag. You want to be one with, you want to be somebody with no history at all, no background, only have your word to go on. I mean, it's a red flag, right? But folks do things in the face of red flags regardless. So if you choose to go that route, be prepared to back it up. You will have to be more open, more transparent, more professional about what you know and how you can sell it. Again, your interviewer becomes your client if you're looking for them to pay you, if you're looking for them to compensate you. Are you not? So they become the client that you must sell your services, your image, your reputation. And if you have no history before you, if all you have is the now and the present, and you don't want them to go back into your history to speak to individuals who could potentially vouch for you, who could potentially recommend you as a professional, you've got to sell that much harder. You've got to look miraculous. You've got to look divine. You must appear as if divine. And that's hard enough. That's hard enough having recommendations, having referrals because of competition. You're out here in the labor market looking for work. That requires you to sell yourself already. And you're competing. So you have to do right. You have to be right. You have to be better. One last comment. I think we have some time. It says, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. It says, okay. It says, if that company resolves its issues and takes you on, oh, I guess they're quoting the body of the question. That's if the company resolves its issues and takes you on. Yeah, it says you're currently not working and you don't owe them anything. I said exactly that. Not even 30 minutes ago, right? Because we're still within this 30-minute console. I said that less than 30 minutes ago. I was harping on that already. You don't owe them shit. Keep it moving. Do it moving. And if they are going through legal issues, what is the CEO? I mean, like, how big is this firm that you were at? Is it the CEO? Was it family run? Is it like the head of the company was also doing the hiring and they've got to do the litigating, handling lawyers and whatnot? Like, is there an increased degree of stress that you just don't want to expose future employers to? Maybe it makes your professional image look bad. Having worked for an employer that's currently going through these litigation issues. If your previous employer doesn't have some way to compartmentalize these issues, if they don't have a legal department, if they don't have a hiring department, it's the CEO, it's the president handling everything, yeah, they're going to be overwhelmed. And that stress, that tension is going to come across the phone. Again, you're selling. You want to smile before you dial? That's just going to come across the phone. The high pressure, the intensity. And it might make you look bad. So in that regard, the concern, the lack of confidence, having future employers contact past employers is understandable, but all within context. Those are questions we would ask of the client. Those are questions we would ask together. We would need to know the answer before we can formulate some kind of strategy. It says here, shoot your shot with the new option, but decline for them contacting your current employer if you're nervous about it. Yeah, okay, there you go. I just said that. If you're nervous about how it would look, like if your future, like if my brain is going 100 miles an hour. I wish I could type it out for you, but I've got less than a minute because I'm over 30. If you're concerned that the reputation of the firm you were working at in the past has gotten around as being tied up in a lawsuit, I mean, you already have to disclose that you worked for them, right? So walk with me here. How much of it can you conceal? You can't conceal a whole lot, especially if you were there 1 year and a half as a student, right? So you want to claim you have experience, that you have work experience, but you don't want to have that validated, have that legitimized, have that verified, if you will. Okay, you'll just have to sell harder. Now, if the lawsuit turns out to be something heinous, something atrocious, and you don't want to list your past employer at all, then you have 1 year and a half, just a gap in your work experience, which you will also have to sell. You will have to explain. You'll have to explain away. You'll have to justify it somehow that you were everywhere and nowhere getting this experience, but having never worked at all. Sure, you could claim that you were those 1.5 years you were still in school, right? You have that going for you. You were working at this other place while you were a student. So, in theory, if you claim never to have worked there, you were still a student. And you could bolster, I'm going to say embellish or puff up your academic experience as being more practical, more experiential, bring out those components of your education in order to sell the fact, because you're still selling, in order to sell the fact, you know what to do, what is required of you in this new position you're applying to. Again, another strategy, but that's a gem for you in real time, 30 minutes or less. My name is Alex. If you find yourself in a situation like this, you, a family member, an associate of yours, stuck in corporate, because you're never really stuck. You're in corporate. You're in corporate now listening to me. You may or may not know it. What we need you to do is wake up to the fact there's a corporate war taking place and there are no sides. But you must move like a corporate cowboy in order to see it through. Take care of yourself. I'll catch you next time.